Hello, everyone. First, I should mention that this session is being recorded, so if anyone in the audience has any concerns, please be advised. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Mahdi Genjabi, and I'm so glad you could join us today for the very first event in our Asemana virtual book talk series. For those of you who may not know, founded in 2017 in Canada, Asemana Books is an independent publishing house and literary event organizer dedicated to elevating voices that transcend borders and enrich the cultural fabric of West Asian and North African diaspora. We specialize in publishing progressive, multilingual, and underrepresented literature and scholarship while curating literary events that foster dialogue and community engagement. This new virtual series is very much part of that mission. It's meant to extend the life of the books we publish, to open up dialogue around them, and to contribute to the production of knowledge about diasporic and marginalized literatures. We also recognize that the current state of global literature still requires deep structural reorientation before it can truly reflect diversity and inclusivity. With this series, we hope to contribute to that shift by centering voices and stories that are often overlooked in mainstream literary spaces. And so it feels especially fitting to begin with the launch of An Iranian Odyssey, the debut English language novel by acclaimed Iranian writer Rana Soleimani, who we have the pleasure of being together today with us. Tonight is not only a celebration of this important book, but also the beginning of an ongoing conversation about literature, diaspora, and cultural memory. Before starting the session, let me also acknowledge the land on which Asemana Books operates. Asemana Books operates on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Wendat peoples. This land is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We are grateful to have the opportunity to read, write, publish, and connect through words on this land. As for today's program, we will first start with a 10 minutes presentation by Amir Yazdanbod, followed by one by Ali Sobati, and then we will hear from Rana herself about this novel. Hopefully, we will have some questions by then. Otherwise, we would invite you to the people in the audience to also open their mic and ask their questions directly from the speakers or author as they would like. And also, to reiterate myself, please note that this session is being recorded. Rana Soleimani is a writer based in Stockholm. Born in March 1956 in Tehran, she studied economics at the University of Tehran. Since 2015, she has been residing in Sweden and is a member of the Writers in Exile Association as well as the Swedish Writers Union. Soleimani previously published the short story collection Lorca in Khiyaban Fereshte or Fereshte Street, from which the story Herta won one of Iran's most prestigious literary awards. She has also published the novel Ulysses Syndrome in London. Her novel Long Live Life, which revolves around the lives of four imprisoned women, became one of the best-selling Persian language books outside Iran in 2021 and 2022. Another of her works, A Day with the 7,000 Years Olds, takes its title from verses by Omar Khayyam. An Iranian Odyssey is Rana Soleimani's third book and her first novel, narrating the Odyssean journey of a woman in migration. Translated from Persian to English by Feridon Rashidi, this modern introspective novel unfolds over nearly 5 years, centering on the life of a woman named Nina. At the very beginning of the novel, Nina encounters a man who once played a pivotal role in her tumultuous life in exile, and then the story unfolds. It's employs in the novel, Soleimani employs a modern narrative style, offering a bold, unflinching, and engaging portrayal of events. And as for our speakers today, starting with Amir Yazdanbod. Amir Yazdanbod is an Iranian-Canadian writer whose short stories and essays have appeared in Persian and English since 2009. His debut collection, The Portrait of an Incomplete Man, published by Cheshme back in 2009, won the Golshiri and Gam Aval prizes, two of the most prestigious literary prizes in Iran, and his fiction has since earned the Tehran Short Story Award and the Qalam Zarrin Zamane Prize. Amir's political novel Stutter, published by Ufuk 2013, explores neocolonialism in Iran and Central Asia. He writes in English. Now based in Edmonton, he writes in English while drawing on a background in philosophy, physics, and computer engineering. He also serves as an honorary editorial advisor to the Persian fiction program at Asemana Books. Having said that, let's join me in welcoming Amir to the floor, and we are all here, ears to listen to your presentation.
Thanks, Lecter. Thank you. Let me start. My job today is convincing people to buy this book and put time to read this book, and I'm gonna try to do my job. Let me start right away. We don't have much time right now. Let me start. I'm gonna start with a simple question. How far would you go to protect your child? What would you have to go through to keep them safe, to give them even a small chance at a life with, dignity? I think that question sits right at the heart of this novel, An Iranian Odyssey, written by Rana Soleimani and translated into English by Feridon Rashidi. Now, this isn't just a book about Iran, let me tell you that. And it's not just about like Sweden. It's not even about exile itself. My understanding, it's about what happens when politics reach into the most private spaces, into your bedroom, into a kitchen, into a classroom, into the middle of family. I think it's about how silence can choke a life and how memory refuses to vanish, to let go, sort of thing. The novel begins quietly. A mother is lying on a boardwalk in the sun, her son close by, Bob Dylan, a voice drifting through her headphones. You think you're in a calm, peaceful scene, and then bam. So then a shadow falls. A man from her past, suddenly it appears into she recognizes him, and suddenly, sort of as if fear walks into the light. And then that moment, that recognition is the spark that sets the whole Odyssey in motion. The Odyssey with the pattern we know, that circular, the journey of the hero starts over. And let me pause here. I'm not going to give you a sort of neat summary of this book. I don't want to spoil it, because the real power, I think, of this kind of novel isn't just the events that is happening in the novel. Even if you knew every plot point, that wouldn't, my understanding, capture it. The real power is in the time you spend with this kind of, novel. My understanding again. In the way it sort of draws you into a story, its rhythms, its silences, its shocks, until you find yourself feeling with the narrator, almost against your will sometimes. That's where the heart of the novel lives, in the empathy, sort of, it builds over the time with you. So there's a moment early on when she notices a dragonfly over the lake. I love that scene. That's, I think, a brilliant tool to start the structure of this novel from. And here's a detail that stays with me. Dragonflies are like among the few creatures that can actually fly backwards. Hummingbirds can do that too. That's interesting. They can hover, shift, reverse in midair. So she decides, the narrator decides, if she's to survive, she too must fly sort of backwards. And that is brilliant point of start, like sort of, kick a start for the whole story. She must return through her past, pieces by piece by piece. What unfolds from that there, again, my understanding is extraordinary. We follow her in Stockholm as an immigrant mother, and then facing rejection after rejection from immigration office, working long hours in a restaurant, and she even renting out her womb just to avoid deportation. The surrogacy scene are by themselves, I think, seeds a whole novel at Rana's work. I think that part, I love that part, and I think she deliberately, it's my assumption, doesn't dive into that much, because these are not. But at the end, these are not abstract struggles. I think they are as real as a child's hunger, as sharp as the sting of a stranger's slap in the streets, as it happens in the first scenes. But the story doesn't stay in exile. It pulls you back into Iran, into her years of university student. When she was a student, where with her in the library, you can see Basijis kick the door of the library open. We see students beaten and dragged away, and we meet Isaac, the philosophy student she marries to, and we believe the guy believes freedom is still possible in that sort of society. We are talking about like Iran's, uh, totalitarian sort of regime that is ruling everything. He believes even thought itself can be an act of resistance. I'll get back to this resistance part. Through her eyes, we feel the fear of that time, living in that kind of space, and the fear of speaking, the fear of speaking, the fear of simply existing in the wrong place at the wrong time, sort of thing. And yet, what struck me most in this novel is it is not about despair. It's the persistence of life. Children still needs to be fed. Music still plays in the headphones. There's still laughter even in the cracks of exile, I think. The book insists on that people keep endure is the point, I think. Now, you might be wondering why read this here in Canada, far from Tehran, from Stockholm. Because this is not just her story. It is the story of millions, and that number, by the way, is growing. As you can see every day in the news outlets, you can see how it's becoming the center of attention in political realm. And it reminds us that behind every headline, behind those numbers and headlines, there is there is a trembling hand of a mother trying to hold a child's hand. Someone trying to keep a memory alive and stop vanishing into nothingness, sort of thing. Let me stop here a second. I want to acknowledge something very important. The reason we have this book in front of us at all is because of the work of Asemana books. Asemana has opened the space for Canadian readers to hear voices like Rana's voice, as you can hear, and that matters, I think, because without publishers willing to take those risks, willing to sort of carry stories across languages, barriers, across borders, we lose them. We lose the human voice that holds history and reduces history into headlines, numbers, statistics. And that's the risk that Asemana takes If you are familiar with the publishing industry in North America, you know what I'm talking about. So if you're looking for a book that comforts you, this is honestly probably not it. But if you're looking for a book that will stay with you, will sort of unsettle you and linger long after you put it down, I think An Iranian Odyssey is exactly that. I sometimes think of novels like this as a form of a slow resistance kind of thing. They don't shout slogans. They don't argue in parliaments, but they resist in another way. They're they resist silence. They resist forgetting. They resist the flattening of human beings into categories, numbers, headlines, statistics. When you close An Iranian Odyssey, you don't just know more. You carry, my understanding, a voice inside you. You carry images that will not leave you. And that is the kind of resistance we need, I think, because political conflicts today aren't just fought with guns or borders. You can see it every day. They're fought with narratives, with the stories, even over narratives about who belongs, who doesn't, who counts as human, who doesn't. And so reading a novel like this isn't just an act of, I think, literary appreciation. It is also a political act. It's a way of saying we refuse to let those lives like sort of be reduced to statistics, to headlines, to numbers. We refuse to let them vanish from our imagination. I'll leave you with the image that won't let me go back to that dragonfly. The dragonfly moving backwards. She decides she too must go back. It's in the core of modern literature, this rereading, going back, this slowness of again reading something and restructuring, this retracing everything, reassemble sort of her scattered life as our lives are. And that I think is the gift of this novel. It lets us fly sort of backwards like a dragonfly, witness what she has lived through our eyes while we are looking at to our lives, and then carry her voice forward, I think is the whole thing. And yeah, that's all, I think. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Amir, for this powerful uh, opening up, opening to this novel and this kind of metaphoric reading, and very both bringing in the metaphors in the novel as well as the thinking about how important are these narratives and bringing back the human aspect of whatever news that we hear, as you said, that these people, immigrant, exile, existence are not just numbers, are very much embodied struggles of people for a future, and who are carrying a lot of uh, stories that deserve to be heard and are should be part of what actually constitutes the truth, the global narrative that we need to hear. Moving to our second speaker, Ali Sobati is an Iranian poet, translator, and literary activist based in Tehran. With over 20 years of work in Iran's suppressed literary and academic circles, he has taught modern poetry, philosophy of literature, and critical theory across underground and alternative institutions. He's the co-editor and translator of Hayran. I love the coinage, Hayr and Iran, Hayran. Poems of Hayr and Freedom, published by Scotland Street Press 2024, and author of the forthcoming poetry collection, The Tree of Life, a Fragmented Elegy. Sobati's work spans Persian and English and engages with exile, trauma, and resistance. In addition to publishing widely, he has organized poetry collectives, disaster relief campaigns, and educational workshops for at-risk youth in Tehran's Darvazahar district. Many people know Ali for his huge literary activism and impactful literary activism that he has done through decades. Since arriving in Canada in 2022, he has continued this intersectional model of literary and social work through public readings, translations, and cultural programming. His exile is a direct result of his public defiance of Iran's state censorship and cultural repression. Ali John, well, let me welcome you to the session, please. Yes, thank you so much. We are all here, ears, as they say in Persian.
Thank you for that detailed introduction indeed. I got a lot of useful information about myself that I had long forgotten. If you don't mind, because I've taken notes for this talk, it's gonna be definitely exceeding my time, so I get right away to it. The title is An Iranian Odyssey Syndrome, a cartographic reading of exilic trauma in diasporic literature. And I read the text for you. Is my voice heard clearly? Perfect. One of the most urgent literary tasks ahead of Iranian diasporic writing is to create a cartography of exile, to identify the ruptures and disjoints that structure its fictional universes. No novel emerges in isolation. Each is conditioned by its genealogy, by earlier works, and by histories of loss that sustain it. Rana Soleimani's An Iranian Odyssey cannot be understood apart from the genealogy. Its antecedents include Feridon Rashidi Le Quarantin, Reza Qasemi's The Nocturnal Harmony of the Wood Orchestra, and Shahryar Mandanipour's Censoring an Iranian Love Story. Each of these mutated the diasporic form, Rashidi through allegories of quarantine, Qasemi through recursive temporality, Mandanipour through fractured language. Soleimani's novel belongs in this constellation, though a proper comparative study must remain for another time. By this, I mean, I'm not trying to define a canon, a literary canon. I'm just saying that we need a context against which contemporary diasporic literature can be analyzed and dissected and categorized and evaluated and deconstructed, and whatever literary operation that you do want to exert on these diasporic literary texts, fictional texts, you need to do that against the background of suggesting that this such works would provide that background for understanding and evaluating these works. Anyway, get back to the text. If I wish to wear my more critically predisposed beret, I might attempt a Marxian dialectical reading, how socioeconomic conditions are articulated into narrative form, marked with literariness and configured in language. Such a stance would require militant deconstruction. Here, however, I have deliberately refrained from that in favor of a practice our criticism has increasingly neglected, a phenomenological reading religiously committed to the text itself. This is in the spirit of Shahrukh Meskoob's grossly neglected phenomenological reading of Hafiz in the Alley of the Friend that Kuye Doost, and to a similar note, Muhammad Hougli's poetry of our time, She'r Zaman Ma, which arguably provided the grounding necessary for a text-based, structurally and formally informed reading of the founding figures of Iranian modern poetry. Given the limited time frame, I will confine my remarks to the first half of the novel, from its opening to the moment when the protagonist, a young Iranian woman in Sweden in exile and of Jewish descent, a minority before and after exile, gives birth as a surrogate mother and confronts its aftermath. Within that arc, I will trace four dominant modes through which exile manifests itself: linguistic disorientation, memorial fragmentation, identical dissolution, and corporeal alienation. Each is not merely a theme, but a rupture that structures the novel's form. Section 1, diasporic dislocation. The most foundational dimension of exile in an Iranian Odyssey is diasporic dislocation. This is not merely geographic removal, but ontological suspension. The condition of being cut off from homeland and not at home in the host land, being paradoxically a racial target while invisible. Not being European makes you feel like an outsider with frustrated hope. Since I arrived in this country, I have tried to stand on my own 2 feet. It was as if I wanted to tell them I was not an economic migrant who had come here to steal the bread and butter from their table. The worst part of it all was that you were invisible here. Page 33. The original Farsi title, more accurately rendered as Odyssey Syndrome, is telling. Unlike the English title, An Iranian Odyssey, it names exile not as journey, but as pathology, a syndrome that is disturbing, traumatic, and chronic. The novel unfolds under this epitaph in a dialectical struggle between light and darkness. The nights were growing longer and longer, and the slow shortening of the days made me feel increasingly lonely and condemned, fearing the lightening. I'm in the dark. I could hear the muffled howling of the wind that rattled the windows and the sound of the branches that snapped under the weight of heavy snow. Page 106. From this dislocation arise four symptomatic syndromes: linguistic or disorientation, memorial fragmentation, identical dissolution, and corporeal alienation. Section 2, linguistic disorientation. The narrator belongs to the post-1990s Iranian university generation, shaped by post-structuralist debates but now exiled in Sweden, a visible minority refugee fighting for recognition. The novel's fabric is woven from the double time, her present struggle and her fragmented recollections of Iran. Exile first unsettles language. Quote, I was nothing but an exile without a future. Even if I could speak English, I lost my self-confidence and could not talk to anyone. I was afraid of incorrectly putting my intentions into words. Whenever I tried to say something, it turned out wrong. Often I found myself in awkward situations, acting clumsily. I knew very well that humans communicate with the outside world only through language. I also knew what would happen to a person if she lost the faculty of speech. I had come to dislike any communication. I started to talk to myself. In our country, they had silenced us in such a way that we had lost the power of speech, and instead of speaking, we had learned to be on our own and hold conversations with ourselves. Pages 27 and 28. Here, exile is semantic as well as geographic. She is expelled from the reliability of language itself. This culminates in what the text calls Ulysses syndrome. Ulysses syndrome. Not only was I nobody in my homeland, but also I didn't have anyone here. I had no document to prove who I was. I was suffering from Ulysses syndrome. Ulysses was the mythological Greek hero king. When the monster Calypso asked his name, he replied, My name is nobody. I was truly a nobody in Sweden. I felt the ground giving way under my feet. Now I had to think of making this place my home. Where is home? And what does it mean anyway? Page 67. Linguistic disorientation is structural. The novel unfolds in broken testimonies, faltering sentences, failed communications. Language itself becomes a symptom of exile. Section 3, memorial fragmentation. The second syndrome is memorial fragmentation. Exile fractures memory into shards and absences. The clearest example is the brother's departure to the United States. At night, I stared into the dark, waiting for him to return, but the bed across from mine remained empty. And with each sleepless hour, I understood more clearly that he would never come back. Page
104. Memory is not linear but retroactively shattered. On page 113, the narrator voices the paradox of diasporic memory. Leaving my country did not estrange me from its traditions. On the contrary, distance made me feel them more intensely. But this sharpening brought no comfort. It was like the pain of a phantom limb, vivid but unattached. Page 113. Memorial fragmentation is thus both theme and engine of narration. The novel advances through ruptured recollections and discontinuous time. Section 4, Identical Dissolution. Exile not only strips identity but compels its distortion. Identical dissolution. Refugees fabricate acceptable selves and then come to believe in these masks. Afshar, once a state employee, now an exiled intellectual, remarks, "Do you see these lots who have managed to stay here? What is interesting and strange about them is that they have come to believe in their lies. After leaving the ball, they have taken part in a masquerade and kept their mask on for such a long time that now the masks are stuck to their faces, having become an integral part of their identity. That's why they are wandering like lost souls in no man's land." Page 23. This is double disillusion. It is the host land and refugee is misrecognized in, reduced to a case. I think this was mentioned in the previous talk as well. Within the diaspora, insularity deepens, Iranian voices echoing only each other, and peer reliance creates communal myopia, at work in the historical Iranian diasporic failure to recognize the fundamental otherness. The narrator herself reflects on her doubleness, hyper-visible as refugee while invisible as intellectual. Identity becomes a masquerade until, as Afshar warns, the mask becomes the face itself. Section 5, Corporeal Alienation. Finally, exile inscribes itself directly into the body, corporeal alienation. The pram scene stages this with brutal clarity. Discovering an empty stroller struck by a stranger on the bus, she collapses into publicly manifested animal cries. The body registers exile as physical rupture. Later, after serving as a surrogate, maybe the baby had left something in my womb. One can never tell. Feeling that the baby was stirring, I would keep touching my empty belly, but no, nothing was there. An empty belly and a weird sort of void. There were still some stains on my nightdress where my water had broken. Page 120. What remains is a profoundly, viscerally felt void marked by a few stains left on broken water. Even the breath, the sites of the elixir of life, become pointlessly productive and painfully hollow. It was as though my body didn't belong to me. My milk kept accumulating in my breasts, and I couldn't tell them to become dry, could I? I wish I could suckle that baby so that there would be no more milk left in my breast, but every night I had to empty my very painful breast. Same page. And again, I often felt that I was still pregnant and would touch my belly. I would even feel some pain that I found pretty odd. I would sometimes imagine that the baby's face had features of both of her parents. Most of the time, however, I would try to get rid of those images. Even so, I felt a strange void in my belly. One always feels the absence of something that one once used to have. Of course, you never miss something you never had, something that had never been a part of you. But if you lose something you once had, you will somehow feel its absence. Page 128. More to this, after a sexual assault by an Iranian landlord and former husband in Sweden, insomnia returns. Trauma recurs eternally in different guises. Exile thus imposes a Nietzschean eternal return of suffering, written onto the body itself. Conclusion. Most of Iranian literature in exile reveals itself as syndrome-infested and insular. An Iranian Odyssey, especially in its first 100 pages, is built from parallel micro-narratives, fragments side by side without synthesis. This incapacity prevents Iranian diasporic literature from universalizing itself, reflected in the near abandonment of Persian poetry on the global stage. It also mirrors the diaspora's shattered identity, chimeric, often monstrous. Nowhere is this clearer than in the political opposition that during the most horrific genocide of our contemporary memory openly sided with Israel, while Israel and the United States waged war against Iran. Such betrayals reveal the profound collective struggle still required if the diaspora is to cease being merely diasporic, homelandless, trapped in abstraction. The history of the Iranian diaspora is traumatic, not only today, but across centuries, reaching back to the entanglements of the Qajar dynasty with European powers in 18th and 19th centuries. What Soleimani's novel make visible is this: Iranian diasporic literature has expressed trauma, but rarely transcended it. It has not yet attempted to sublate exile into a more integrative, self-reconciled experience. Only such a transformation could generate a future literature that moves beyond trauma towards universality. Thank you.
Thanks, Alijan, for this very much thought-provoking reading and analysis. That I'm pretty sure there is a lot to think about, and you provided us with a lot of ground to discuss, and kind of sociological and historically to discuss the diasporic psyche, or in a sense, what really means by Iranian diaspora and how we should understand it, and whether and I really also I'm interested as someone who constantly thinks about canonization and destabilizing canons, how you want to create point of reference while avoiding to create canons for Persian diasporic literature. Having said that, let's move to our start today. Rana, the floor is yours. We are here to hear your reflections on writing about this novel, or whatever you like to share with us.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rana. I was born in Tehran. Since 2014, I live in Stockholm, Sweden. I study economy, but my true passion is writing. It's my world. This book is called An Iranian Odyssey, also known as Ulysses syndrome. It's the first. It was my first novel. Before this, I mainly wrote short story. I remember I had also written a novel in Iran, but I knew it would never be allowed. So the censor Iran, and the story of Nina is told in the first person. It's about her life in exile, her memory, and her feelings. The first edition of the book was published in London, 2019, in London. The translator lived, this guy is translator. He lived in a small village in England. He had a neighbor who was editor, journalist. She had worked at a famous literature agency in London. When she heard about this story, she became very curious about Nina, what happened. Anyway, she became the official editor of this book. And this book had a long journey. Okay, First is Australian, two chapter were records as an audio English. At the same time, my friend translate this book. It is Turkish. This book also was also published in Israel, Ibriska. Now I'm very lucky to have it published by Asemana, a good and professional publisher. Unfortunately, the Persian version no longer exists. Okay, and thank you so much, Mehdi, Amir Hussein, Ali, and I میخوام فارسی حرف بزنم.
Sure, you can be as you can just move between languages and you would translate sections if needed.
خیلی
Just to
برام احساس
clarify to the audience, Rana's main languages are Persian and Swedish. So, but yeah, please feel free to speak in Persian.
این کتاب قرارداد ترجمه نه قرارداد فیلم شدنش هم حتی نوشته شده بود و ما فکر میکردیم یعنی قرارداد با یه کارگردان خیلی مطرحی که این کتاب خونده بود و میخواست فیلم کنه و بنا به دلایل این پروژه نیمه ماند، نصفه موندش. خب میخواید همزمان ترجمه کنید بگم؟
Yes, Rana is talking about the fact that the book was also under contract by a prestigious filmmaker to be converted to a movie, and she was very much hoping and looking forward to that.
و وقتی الان که تیکه های از کتاب رو که میخوندن دوستان علی جان و امیر حسین میگفتن و من اون لحظه ها رو یادم میامد. رو زمانی که این کتاب رو نوشتم یادم میاد که از یه محیط ایران تازه اومده بودم و خیلی چیزها بودش که باید سانسور میکردم، یعنی اون خود سانسوری هم با خودم داشتم.
She's talking about the time that she was writing this novel was just early time. She had moved from Iran to Sweden, and she was still feeling the pressure of self-censorship as she was, rendering the story and trying to bring it to life.
ولی بعد یه جا فکر کردم که خب نه، من همیشه این حس رو داشتم که نمیتونستم اون چیزی که میخوام و بنویسم و اونجا بود که این شهامت رو پیدا کردم و نوشتم.
But it was exactly as part of this struggle that she found that, this empowering feeling that it is exactly because now she can write the story she always wanted, or the way she always wanted to narrate a story, that this feeling actually empowered her writing.
و خیلی هم الان احساس خوبی میکنم که بعد از مدت ها این کتاب دوباره راجبش داره صحبت میشه و امیدوارم که از طریق این نشر خوب آسمانا بتونه مخاطبای خودش رو پیدا کنه.
And she's very happy that the novel is being revisited given this renewed English edition, and she hopes that through the endeavors of Asemana Books that the book can reach the audience it deserves.
مرسی، ممنون.
Merci. Thanks, Ranajan, for this reflection on your writing career as well as the fate of this novel. Sometimes we all should write also stories about what happened to each of the stories or books that we wanted to publish. Sometimes, in many ways, it had been quite impactful. To me personally, I always think about the time that I first attempted to publish my first poetry collection, and given the censorship, I came up with the idea to publish it underground, and this started a journey of self-publishing that, in a sense, nowadays have flourished to this active publishing activism that I love and I hope to be able to sustain, given the support and the encouragement and the necessity. Okay, thanks for all of you for being here. We have very great, I know most of the people in the participants, very much knowledgeable, audience. I really look forward. Please, if any of you have any comments or any questions you want to share about any aspect of what we discussed today, please feel free to open your mic and share with us. Okay.
Hello.
Hi, Lily.
Hi. Thank you very much, Rana. Well done.
Thank you.
Everything is great, sounds great. And I love to hear these things. I live in Vancouver, British Columbia, in the west of Canada. And I'm not with the Toronto crowd, like Ontario, their province, استانشون, it's more literary than here in BC, a little bit, especially with us Iranians. And I really appreciate this, and I hope that soon we have more and more of these sessions with everyone in this in Canada, not just Ontario or Toronto. I'm glad you're coming from a global,
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lily John, for your feedback and comment. And we really look forward to also hear more about your thoughts at some point regarding diasporic literature and your own contributions to the field.
How many years ago the book was written, original?
Original. 8 years.
8 years.
Yes.
And you were in Iran when you wrote it, right?
No.
You were in Sweden,
Yes.
but the thought was with you when you were.
It was خیلی جدید بودم اینجا.
Okay.
پس رانیا جان، یعنی ایده های اولیه رمان از زمانی داخل ایران بودی توی ذهنت بود یا بعدش؟
نه خیلی ایده هاش نه همراه خودم نبود و خیلی جالبه که من یه ورژنی از این نوشته بودم و من وقتی که اینجا به سوئد مهاجرت کردم، من یه اتفاقی که افتاد، اینم یکی از جزء خاطراتیه که بعد از سفر این کتاب بگم. میخوای ترجمه کنید؟
Okay, she's now speaking back to Lily's question regarding the idea behind the novel, that it started when she moved to Sweden.
خونه من سوختش و آتیش گرفت و کامپیوتری که توش این داستان نوشته بودم همراه با خونم سوخت.
She had written a draft of the first draft of this novel, and then there was an event. Her house was got on fire, and the computer on which the draft had been saved also was lost.
بعد یه معلم زبانی داشتم سوئدی که یاد میگرفتم، میدونست که من دارم رمان مینویسم. بعد که وقتی فهمید که من خیلی ناراحتم و رمانی که نوشتم مثلا سوخته، بهم گفتش که گفت توی مغزت که نسوخته. گفتم نه. گفت پس برو دوباره بنویسش و من این کارو کردم.
At that point, she had a Swedish language instructor who once was informed of what has happened and the fact that she has lost the draft given the fire. She actually encouraged her. Okay, the computer was, got burned. Your mind, the story is in your mind, and it's still there.
اینم یه داستانی بوده.
Thanks. Any other comments?
Yes.
Yes. Salam Shukufa Jan. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for the call that you sent. I got it yesterday, and so I made sure that I'll be here and listening to the book, the reviews, and meeting you, Rana. Very nice meeting you, and I'm amazed with with the passion that you carried this story. It's the fact that you had it, you lost it in the fire, you kept it, you brought it back, and you give it life, and all through this process that you brought. And the story that you, Matty, said that we all carry the stories in our head. We all have, because of being in exile, having lived so many different lives in our lives, it's just we carry them. But the fact of being able to bring it out, and that the strength, that courage, that confidence, that hope, maybe, or hope, it requires a clear mind and a strong heart. I think that's what it requires. And thank you. I enjoyed that, and I'm looking forward to read your story. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Sahi, for this reflection and for your engagement. It's an honor to have you here. Also, all others in the audience. Yes, Humaira, looking for, yes.
Thank you for the invitation, and I'm so happy to be with you guys. I'm so sorry I was late because of the timing. I wasn't sure is Vancouver timing or Toronto timing. I missed it. Rana Jun, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. You're coming.
I love to see you here. My question is, as an Iranian woman, how much, when you are doing your writing and stories, how much you were scared of being judged? Because I have a book and I'm just hesitating to go for a print because of the judgment. Like how much you are at the risk? Was it easy for you, or like how did you go and pass every level of this fear? Thank you.
خب مرسی همیرا جون. اصلا راحت نبود، خیلی بعد از اینکه من این کتاب رو نوشتم و وقتی که یه مدت کوتاهی فارسیش چاپ شده بود خیلی اذیت شدم و خیلی هم جاد شدم و خیلی پیام هایی میگرفتم که اصلا خوب نبود. حتی پیام هایی میگرفتم که یک جورهایی یه جورهایی از طرف آقایونی میگرفتم که حتی مثلا خودشون دست به قلم داشتن و من تعجب میکردم که چطور ممکنه که مثلا اون انسانهایی که خودشونو تو اون درجه بالاتری هم میدونن بر اساس اینکه ادبیاتی خوندن و مثلا ادبی هستن چطور اینجوری به خود من نسبت میدن و خیلی هم به من میگفتن که مقصر خودت هستی چون اینو اول شخص نوشتی. بله.
I think the passion that Rana had in responding this is evident given that she didn't let me translate it in between. So she actually shared the fact that in practice, yes, it was quite, after publishing the book, it was very hard. She needed a lot of strength to do it, to bring out the story. And then even after the novel being published, she received a lot of feedbacks, that annoying feedback, sometimes even by people of literature or those who are also engaging, male colleagues who are also engaged in writing practices, who passed the negative comments or feedbacks or shared them with her, but and she's also critical of this fact that whites, even those who consider themselves as elites or those who are upper in this cultural hierarchy, still are sharing these kind of feedbacks, and some actually even went on to say it's your problem because you choose to write from the point of view of the first person. So her narrative, in a sense, her narrative choice was being used as a way to criticize her novel. Yes, Shukufujan.
Sorry, I'm coming back. So I'm taking this happen because this conversation between you and Humaira brought me, I opened my Facebook this morning, and I saw this clip of a book it says, "What a great event in Tehran," because there is a a lineup for buying a book. And the book, it was a long lineup. Yeah, that was a very nice things. And you could see at the beginning, men are congratulating, hugging each other on the front, and all of these things. And I said, what's the title of the book? The title of book is something. I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember. If you're not a girl, you don't understand her. Something like that. دختر نباشی. Something like that. نمیفهمی سرنوشتش رو، یه همچین چیزی. So the lineup is long, very long, goes around the streets, mostly women standing, congratulatory. Then you see all men hugging each other. And then it comes, the writer is a man, and it's writing and signing the book. And I'm thinking, the writer, and then it says, it's not, if you don't know a woman from a woman's angle, you don't know. If you're not a girl, you don't understand the world. And it's a man writing it. And women are buying it. And men are the publishers or whatever, whoever is all the surrounding that they are feeling congratulatory are all men. And I was thinking, wow. So we all women are lining up to buy a book that it's telling us that if you're not a girl, we don't know what's life from the girl's point of view, which is written by a man. And then I'm thinking that, okay, maybe we are actually in a part in our history, in where we are. I hope that one day we get to the point that a woman writes the life of a woman from the point of view of a woman, and such a big lineup actually shows up there, and women stand, and men too, to buy that book from a woman. We're a long way from that. It's sad, but that's where we are. And so I'm glad that tonight then I came to this one. And it's hearing from a woman, the life of a woman that is experienced being in exile, and from a woman's point of view. So that's, I thought it was an interesting coincidence. And it is hard. It is hard to be a woman and to have your voice comes out from the voice of the experience of a woman, not the voice of men through the women, or not a man comes and tries to, just emulate your voice and give it to you. So it's really difficult. That again, very congratulations to have. Thank you.
Thanks, شکوفه جان.
من یه جواب شکوفه جانو بدم.
Sure. And then we would hear from
مرسی شکوفه جان، واقعا نکته خیلی خوبی اشاره کردید. منم اون کلیپ رو دیدم و به این واقعا فکر کردم که وقتی توی جامعه‌ای مثل ایران زن باشی و نویسنده هم باشی و اینا همه خودش میشه فشارهای سرکوب‌های مضاعفی میشه و برای مثلا همه شرایط واسه این، اگه یه همچین اتفاقی برای یه نویسنده یه زن توی جامعه ادبی که ایران که همچنان هم مرد سالا هست راه طولانی داره، شکوفه جان درست گفتن که به اون جا بتونیم برسیم و امید داریم که این اتفاق بیفته.
Yes, Rana also shares that she has seen the clip too, and she is sharing the feelings that Shikufa also shared. And given the patriarchal condition that the literary circles and the literary environment have in Iran, she also agrees that we have a long time and long way to go to try to resist or create balance in terms of the hierarchies that she sees, and the fact that she considers, when you are a woman and also a writer, it's as if you are under a double suppression, or multiple suppressions are being imposed on you. It's also, let me share that it's very hard and very nuanced to act as a translator of your feelings and emotions, and I wish there were better people to do the job. Amir, let us hear
I
from
just
you.
wanted to add something real quick to, regarding Humaira's question about her courage in writing. And as part of my job to sell the book, I really encourage you guys. I want you to go and find her other novel called Khanesh.
Khanesh.
Or Khanesh, I don't know.
Khanesh.
Khanesh. So that one is the only novel I could find in the terms of stepping into a transgender person's life in detail. And the detail that was striking for me. We couldn't find. We had a program in the University of British Columbia about the otherness in literature and stuff. We couldn't find a single piece about transgenders, and she has this amazing novel, and it has striking scenes. I can't forget it. My job is reading, technically. I read a lot, and it's there, and I can go back and find Rana's work on Khanesh. Go find that. You'll see the courage, the amount and level of courage that she has used there. It's amazing.
Wow.
Thank you so much. We have run a bit over the time. We were hoping to finish by 7. Just Ali John, if you have any final notes you want to make. If you're still, I know Ali also is maybe to move to another meeting. Okay, having said that, I should thank you all for being here. This was our inaugural virtual Asemana Books virtual talks. And I think it was a great one, given all that was shared and the participants. I hope we can build on this and continue these kind of conversations. There are, whether diasporic literature, exilic literature, it all deserves much more discussions and conversations. And I also share what Ali was talking about, the fact that the level of trauma and the level of that trauma that we have gone through deserves a lot of literary outputs and conversation around that, without which we would easily dismiss them, or we would not get the a kind of a panorama of the Iranian psyche, and nowadays in a very much globalized condition, and given all the dislocations and the speed that all this is happening. Thank you so much for being here. If you're interested to know more about our future events, please consider looking into Hamid. I know you have some. Hamid is a brilliant podcast creator, especially emphasizing on diasporic narratives. So let me just give one final remarks to him. Hamid Jan, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the discussion. I just wanted to emphasize, I just asked the same question as Lily asked over the chat, like what Khanesh mean? That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
من به فارسی بگم.
Sure.
خنش به معنای خاریدن میاد توی فرهنگنامه دهخدا هم هست. وقتی یه چیزی که احساس خاریدن داریم و یه چیزی که مثل دمل شده، یه همچی چیزی هستش و کاملا فارسیه.
Thank you. Thanks.
مرسی.
Thanks. And that's the question was around the meaning of the word and Holly. Then at this point I don't know how to translate that. Someone helps me.
Itchy
Itchy,
feeling
yes,
itchy.
yeah,
Yes.
thanks. Okay, on that point, let's I hope to see you all soon in another opportunity, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.